Hello and welcome to Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Amanda Bowen. As we did yesterday, we have quite a lot to talk about today, so we will get right into our hazardous weather. Starting in the southeast, we have a winter weather advisory out for the Hyder area. That is through midnight tonight. That's Tuesday night. And there has already been plenty of snow in the Hyder area. We are expecting some additional snow, with the snow changing to a rain-snow mix starting this evening, Tuesday evening. Again, that is in effect through midnight tonight. We also have a blizzard warning in effect for Richardson Highway from Paxton north. That is in effect through 5 a.m. on Wednesday, and that's going to be for whiteout conditions, again, along Richardson Highway from Paxton north. Just north of there in the Isabel Pass area, south of Trim's Camp, there's also a winter storm warning in effect, basically for that same period of time through early Wednesday morning. Winds there not quite as strong, but still expecting blowing and drifting snow with visibility down to about a half a mile or even a little bit less at times. So definitely some dangerous traveling conditions along Richardson Highway, again from Paxton north and Isabel Pass south of Trim's Camp. As we head to the western Alaska Range, we have a winter weather advisory in effect also through Wednesday morning for some blowing and drifting snow, but those winds are not nearly going to be as high and not as much new snowfall occurring in that area. Heading up north, we have along the Chukchi Sea coast a winter weather advisory in effect through midnight Wednesday night. So again, Wednesday night at midnight, expect some wind, gusts up to 50 miles per hour, causing blowing and drifting snow and lower visibilities that are going to be impacting travel in that area. The highway summits along Steese Highway, we have a winter weather advisory also in effect for that area, also for blowing and drifting snow. There could be some large snow drifts in that area. Again, that's Steese Highway, the highway summits in the surrounding areas around the Yukon Flats. Heading to the southwest part of the state, we have more winter weather advisories in effect. One for St. Lawrence Island that is in effect late tonight through Wednesday evening. Wind gusts up to about 40 miles per hour, again producing blowing and drifting snow in that area. We also have a winter weather advisory in effect for the Kuskokwim Delta area, as well as Nunavut Island and St. Matthew Island. That's also going to be in effect tonight through the day on Wednesday. Again, some wind coming in with this next system, going to be some blowing and drifting snow as well as some new snowfall. Now, the orange that you see on the map is two different watches. In the Aleutians, we have a high wind watch that's going to be from a strong system that's going to be coming in tomorrow. So that high wind watch is in effect from Wednesday evening through Thursday afternoon. Wind gusts up to 75 miles per hour possible, and they're going to start out of the southwest, those winds on Wednesday night, and then shift on Thursday morning to out of the west. So not only strong winds, very strong winds coming into the Aleutians, but also a wind shift. So if you are sensitive to that wind direction, make sure you're paying attention to that and preparing now for, again, wind gusts up to 75 miles per hour. For the Pribilof Islands, we also have a blizzard warning that's going to be in effect starting 9 p.m. on Wednesday and go through 9 a.m. on Thursday. Whiteout conditions for the Pribilof Islands with that blizzard warning. And we have a winter storm watch in effect for the Bristol Bay area late Wednesday night through late Thursday night. Possible blizzard conditions, so definitely something to keep an eye on here for if and when that gets upgraded to either a winter storm warning or a blizzard warning. So the potential for blizzard conditions, definitely heavy snow, up to 10 inches of snow in the Bristol Bay area with wind gusts up to about 60 miles an hour. So definitely a strong system coming in Wednesday and Thursday into the southern Bering and impacting the Aleutians and southwest Alaska. As we look at what's going on right now, our satellite imagery is showing a weak low pressure system spinning a little bit there in the North Gulf That is bringing some snow to South Central and the Matanuska Valley today, as well as the blizzard conditions along Richardson Highway, and those windy and snowy conditions further north as well. We can also see the remnants of our system that has been impacting the Panhandle the last couple of days, but is finally moving off to the east. And as we look at our actual surface chart for today, that's pretty much exactly what we see. Our low pressure system in the northern Gulf bringing plenty of snow, as well as blowing snow to areas that aren't seeing fresh snow, but quite a lot of areas of new snow across the mainland. And then we have low pressure just off of eastern Russia in the Bering. That's bringing a weak front through the Bering Sea right now, with again some blowing snow as well as some new snow for the southwest coast. As we head into tonight, we can start to see the beginnings of our low pressure system that's going to be deepening rapidly. It's going to be still south of the Aleutians. Along the west coast, we're going to see a developing low pressure system with some more snow. That's why we have those winter weather advisories in effect for St. Lawrence Island, as well as the Kuskokwim and Yukon deltas. We're also looking at the potential for freezing spray in the Bering Sea tonight. As we head into Wednesday, that low pressure system strengthening and moving into the Aleutians, so probably some breezy conditions on Wednesday, but again, that high wind watch doesn't go in effect until Wednesday night. And we'll see some continuing snow along the west coast and snow showers in the Panhandle. For Thursday, this is where we see that low at its deepest, 966 millibars, centered just north of Kodiak Island. That's the forecast right now. So that's what's going to be bringing those very strong high winds into the Aleutians, as well as the potential for blizzard conditions in the Bristol Bay area and blizzard conditions for the Pribilof Islands. Taking a look at temperatures for Wednesday morning, we're looking at 20s and 30s in the Panhandle and getting back down to the cold that we've been seeing for a few weeks and had a short break from in South Central and the Mat-Su Valley, looking at 6 degrees there at Anchorage and all the way down to 1 degree at Talkeetna for Wednesday morning. Wednesday afternoon, going to be a cold one again across South Central, single digits to some low teens. Much warmer though for the Bristol Bay area, around 32, and 30s for the Panhandle. Thursday morning, dipping down a little bit colder for the northern Panhandle into the teens, still cold single digits to negative single digits for the southern portion of the mainland, and 20s ahead of that system for Bristol Bay. Thursday afternoon, not a whole lot of warming, 20s and 30s in the Panhandle, just teens for South Central, and around freezing for Bristol Bay. As we head north Wednesday morning, we're looking at temperatures in the mostly single digits, negatives for Wednesday morning across the interior, as well as the North Slope and West Coast. Wednesday afternoon, not a whole lot of warming. Area is going to be lucky to get above 0 for Wednesday afternoon. Thursday morning, colder air coming in with some negative teens dipping into the area. And then Thursday afternoon, again, a cold one with temperatures struggling to get above 0. For Southwest, Wednesday morning, we'll see temperatures in the single digits across the mainland, with temperatures in the teens and 20s along the coast, 30s in the Aleutians. Wednesday afternoon, we are looking at temperatures around freezing for the coastal areas, with a little bit colder inland and, as usual, warmer in the Aleutians. And then Thursday morning, we'll see a little bit of a change with some cooler temperatures behind that system for especially the Bristol Bay area, getting down to about 20, and then right back up to around freezing on Thursday afternoon for Bristol Bay, a little bit cooler for the rest of Southwest.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
And now for a look at your aviation forecast, starting with flying weather on Wednesday morning. We have a big swath of IFR conditions expected across Southwest. all the way from St. Lawrence Island and Matthew Island into Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula. Also IFR conditions expected along the Chukchi Sea coast, as well as from the Yukon Flats up into the northeastern Brooks Range, and IFR conditions for much of the western Aleutians, as well as the higher terrain in the Panhandle. Looking ahead into Wednesday afternoon, we see some improvement, especially over southwest in the Bristol Bay area, improvement to VFR, but we'll continue to see the spreading of IFR conditions throughout the Aleutians and into the southern Alaska Peninsula. Also MVFR conditions spreading northward into Norton Sound and the Seward Peninsula. As we look at Thursday morning, we'll see widespread MVFR conditions across much of the interior and west coast, with the focus for IFR conditions that was widespread MVFR conditions, with the focus for IFR conditions in the southeastern Bering Sea, the Bristol Bay area, Alaska Peninsula, and Kodiak Island, as well as much of the Panhandle expected to be IFR on Thursday morning. Thursday afternoon, we'll start to see some improvement in the Bering, but Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island will remain IFR, with those IFR conditions spreading northward to Kenai Peninsula as well as Prince William Sound. For Wednesday on pass conditions, we are looking at Anaktuvuk Pass starting the day at IFR and improving significantly Wednesday afternoon to VFR. Adigan Pass also starting the day IFR and improving to MVFR on Wednesday afternoon. Lake Clark and Merrill Passes both starting the day Wednesday at VFR and deteriorating to MVFR conditions on Wednesday afternoon. Rainy Pass also starting the day VFR, but deteriorating quickly Wednesday afternoon to IFR conditions. Windy Pass starting the day MVFR and improving to VFR on Wednesday afternoon. And we're looking at the same at Isabel, Mentasta, and Tanita Passes, all starting the day at MVFR on Wednesday morning and improving to VFR Wednesday afternoon. At Portage Pass, we're looking to start the day MVFR and deteriorate Wednesday afternoon to IFR. And at Chilkoot and White Passes, we're expecting MVFR conditions through the day on Wednesday. Taking a look at our freezing levels, surface freezing level going from the central Bering, dipping south across the Alaska Peninsula and South Kodiak Island, and then mirroring the coastline of the Gulf of Alaska, coming almost into the southern Panhandle. A little bit of warmer air coming up into the central Aleutians with 2,000-foot freezing levels there. And for icing, some isolated moderate icing expected across the southern tier of the state from the Aleutians all the way up through southwest and the Kenai Peninsula and south central. And then also for the Panhandle, isolated moderate icing above 3,000 feet for the Aleutians and southwest, and above 4,000 feet for the Panhandle. Our jet stream on Wednesday is looking strong as it comes up into the southern Bering and then arcs back southward as it heads over the Bristol Bay area and Kodiak Island, peaking at about 140 knots. So pretty strong jet stream for this time of year. At 9,000 feet on Wednesday, we're seeing our strongest winds just to the south of that main jet. So we're looking at south of the central Aleutians, 75 to 80 knots out of the west and northwest, and then 50 to 75 knots of wind going across the Alaska Peninsula from Bristol Bay across the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island and into the Gulf of Alaska. At 3,000 feet, we see our strongest winds definitely just south of the central Aleutians, 85 knots out of the west. Also a jet of stronger winds stretching all the way from about St. Matthew Island across southwest into Bristol Bay and then across Kodiak Island, anywhere from 45 to 50 knots of wind out of the west and northwest there. And finally, for turbulence, we do have some chances. We do have the opportunity to see some isolated severe turbulence across the eastern Aleutians below about 3,000 feet on Wednesday. Otherwise, considerable moderate turbulence possible for southwest as well as the central interior and the southern Panhandle.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, and joining me once again is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska, based up at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Eric, welcome back to the program.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
And once again, you brought some wonderful satellite pictures to show us and do a little show and tell about. It's just amazing. I can get lost in satellite pictures all day. What did you bring today?
Right. Well, weather satellites, what are they good for? Yeah. Of course, there's the pretty pictures that they bring us. You know, we've got a picture here from April of 2012. Okay. The Sumi NPP satellite, it's what they call a polar orbiter, which means it covers Alaska because we're near the pole. Beautiful image. You can see a storm off of southeast Alaska, the sea ice along the Bering Sea up into the Arctic. A really nice picture, and this is important because it allows a forecaster to see where the storms are, where the ice is, where the clear areas are. You need to know where the weather is now if you're going to forecast it into the future. Exactly. So satellites give us these good pictures. This is called surveillance of the weather. And you know, that same satellite also has another picture from a little more recently, August of 2014, Tropical Storm Iselle bearing down on the Hawaiian Islands. Hawaii doesn't get hit by a whole lot of tropical storms or hurricanes. Sometimes it does. And here's a picture from the same satellite, the Sumi NPP Polar Orbiter. It shows Tropical Storm Iselle approaching the Hawaiian Islands from the southeast. You can see the storm swirling away there, and then there's the Hawaiian Islands. This is a tropical storm, not quite as strong as a hurricane because we don't see the eye wall in there. This is still a serious weather system. And all of this information comes just from that satellite picture. It's so much information, and it's wonderful to look at. You see the beauty and the awe of nature right there depicted in that weather satellite. We call it a polar orbiter because the satellite flies high over the globe. Maybe we could look here at we happen to bring the planet Earth with us. This is our satellite. A polar orbit flies really close to the Earth, maybe 800 kilometers over the Earth, and goes up over the pole and then back down, and then the Earth spins under the satellite as it goes by. That's in contrast to the geostationary birds, which are much further out. And they don't view Alaska quite as well. So we love those polar orbiter satellites here in Alaska.
So when we're a lot closer, we get much better details and imagery and an idea of a better maybe position of what's going on when it's passing right over Alaska or right over Hawaii.
Yes, exactly right. The polar orbiter gives such a good view of places like Alaska. And because it's close to the planet, there's another aspect of satellites in the polar orbit that is helpful for weather forecasting. It's an aspect that's maybe not as immediately obvious as the pretty pictures that we see. And that is the capacity for the satellite to produce what's called a sounding. That is finding the vertical profile of temperature and moisture in the atmosphere. We've all heard of weather balloons. Weather balloons are launched here in Alaska twice a day at a number of airports, everywhere from Barrow to St. Paul Island to Kodiak, Anchorage and Fairbanks, Yakutat, a number of places. Launch these balloons, and we've got a picture of a balloon being launched at an airport, and the balloon goes up. It's pulling a little package, an instrument package with it that reports temperature, pressure, humidity data back, and we use that information to help feed what are called numerical weather prediction models.
The models.
The models, right. It's a mouthful, so we just call it the models. And these computer simulations, these models are computer programs that simulate the motion of the atmosphere. Well, how does a model know what the future will be like? You have to tell the model what things are like now. And you give it all kinds of information, including information from these satellite sounders. Very important. Just how important are they? We have a recent, comparatively recent study that really brings home, and this is Superstorm Sandy. We have a track image here of the track of Hurricane Sandy. It was down in the Caribbean around Cuba, and then it moved north over the ocean, offshore of the eastern seaboard, and then at the last minute, Sandy made what's called the left hook. It turned hard to the left and slammed into New Jersey. Was a major problem for the mid-Atlantic states, a calamity. It fused with another weather system and became known, this is not an official title, but Superstorm Sandy. It was quite the weather event. Well, the modelers, after the event, there's a group of modelers in Europe. They have a very good model, a frustratingly good model if you're the Americans trying to pursue their excellence. They reran their model afterwards in what's called a data denial study, where they kept everything the same. So this is 6 months after Sandy, but they went back, they reran the same model, they fed the model the same initial conditions, that is telling the model, okay, here's where we think Sandy is, down near Cuba in the Caribbean. Everything was the same as it was in the real forecast. except they didn't let the model know.
No satellite data.
No satellite data.
Okay.
So we're going to put that over here. No satellite data for you. The resulting forecast 5 days out, back when the real Sandy was happening and the model had the satellite data, the forecast was pretty good. We've got a graphic here on the left side. We show the forecast of where Sandy would be, and that's the red bullseye on the left. It's just south of where it actually wound up hitting. Not a bad forecast from this computer simulation, 120 hours out. On the right, you see the same model, but it didn't have the satellite data to help it understand things. And the storm is way offshore. It misses. The forecast is more accurate when the model has the satellite data. So that's the idea today we want to convey is weather satellites. They're important because they show us the pictures of where storms are. We see good examples of this. Yeah, the surveillance right now, it's great to look at those pictures. And in addition, behind the scenes, maybe not immediately obvious, but the models have to have that satellite data for them to be good forecasts. And then a meteorologist uses that information to help everyone with the forecast of where the storms will be in the future.
That is fascinating information that we can look at, see where things have been, because you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. That's that old adage there. But seeing that satellites are actually helping us move forward in the weather information system is pretty amazing stuff.
You bet.
And if you want to check out Eric's satellite images that he's been talking about, whether that's something from today or last week or even much further back in Alaska history, you can easily do that yourself. Go to www.gina.alaska.edu and you can find those images there. Eric, thanks so much for joining us once again. And again, we will join you hopefully again soon for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts, where you'll tell us more really cool information about the satellites over our heads in Alaska. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back for your marine forecast, starting with today's ice edge. With the storms that we've been seeing, there was some melting of the ice as well as some ice pushing away from especially northwest facing coasts. But as we're getting that northwest wind back, bringing cold air once again, we're seeing some refreezing as well as that ice pushing back closer to the coast in some places, again, especially along those northwest facing coastlines. So we'll continue to see that, but we do have strong storms coming into the Bering Sea once again. And so any southerly winds may melt back a little bit of that ice edge again. So not so much expansion expected in the next few days with those storms coming through. As we look across southeast for Wednesday, we are looking at winds generally out of the west and northwest, 20 to 35 knots across the Gulf waters, 10 to 20 knots for the inside waterways. We do have some quite high seas, 13 to 16 feet in the northeastern Gulf and up to 23 to 24 feet for the eastern Gulf itself, with even 9 feet in the southern inside waterways. For Thursday, we've got those winds coming up, especially in the northern Gulf, where we'll see winds out of the south, 35 to 45 knots. Seas actually coming up there a little bit too, but 13 to 15 feet, but coming down in the eastern Gulf, 15 to 16 feet. So coming down out of the 20s. Winds increasing across the inside waterways, again out of the south and southeast on Thursday, 20 to 35 knots. For Wednesday across South Central, we're looking at some gales upwards of 40 knots of wind out of the west near the Barrens, as well as just east of Kenai Peninsula, 20 to 30 knots out of the west for the more north central Gulf, and 10 to 25 knots for Cook Inlet. As we go into Thursday, we're going to see the winds in the southern end of Cook Inlet increase even more to about 45 knots out of the northeast and east. Seas there also increasing to 11 to 14 feet. And in the Gulf itself, winds generally coming up 30 to 45 knots out of the south, with seas 10 to 15 feet. For the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island areas, on Wednesday, we are looking at gales across much of the area, particularly on the Gulf side of the peninsula, 35 to 40 knots out of the west. On the Bering Sea side, we're looking at still some high-end small craft advisory winds, 30 knots out of the west there. And then as we head into Thursday, these are going to be the peak winds as we have a very strong system coming through the area. So we're going to see storm force winds 50 to 60 knots across the entire area, with seas peaking as high as about 30 feet. So Thursday, definitely not a good day to be on the water. Wednesday for the Aleutian chain, winds or seas are going to be starting to come up as that low begins to strengthen. We're looking at winds anywhere from 30 to 50 knots, with those strongest winds out of the south, just on the south side of Adak and Atka. And as we head into Thursday, this is where we be seeing the highest conditions here as well. Winds coming up into the mid to upper 20s, and seas coming up into the mid to upper 20s, and winds consistently out of the west 45 to 55 knots. So some storm force winds there as well on Thursday. Wednesday for the west coast, 25 knot winds in Norton Sound, increasing as we head out into the Bering to about 50 knots out of the west, just south of St. Matthew Island. And as we head into Thursday, the northern part, or the west coast itself, will see winds coming down a little bit. Still strong small craft advisory to gale force winds, though 25 to 40 knots, but we will not be seeing those strongest winds that we'll be seeing down by the Alaska Peninsula on Thursday. Heading up to the Arctic coast on Wednesday, we're looking at winds out of the southwest, 15 to about 30 knots. And then on Thursday, winds coming down just a little bit, 10 knots out of the east for the North Slope and 15 to 25 knots for the Chukchi Sea. Recapping what we talked about earlier, we've got low pressure that's going to be developing across the Aleutians and then strengthening, and by Thursday coming in and bringing high winds and plenty of snow to the area. Thanks so much for watching Alaska TV Weather.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.